Craig Wiggins, Slade McFarland, welcome to the Marketing for Business podcast.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, it's good to be here.
Hey guys, I know we're going to have an interesting chat today. I think Slade should be in the middle. He was the hooker, wasn't he?
Yeah, mate. But,
Those days are gone, brother.
Those guys are gone.
Yeah.
Now, you guys are doing something pretty important, and this is why I want to have this conversation today. Lean on a gate, talk to a mate. Craig, we'll call you Wiggy.
Yeah.
Because I know that's what we should be doing. Talk to us a wee bit about Lean on a Gate, talk to a mate. We're going to talk about the journey and how the people that you help, but there's a real, I guess, out there in the community. You help the farming community. You're out there. Sadly, there's a need for you guys as far as what's going on. But I just think it's an amazing conversation we're going to have today because of the people that you're helping. So maybe you give us a bit more of a background on how it started, and we'll have a really good conversation.
Well, Lean on a Gate is a campaign that we developed out of the Whatever with Wiggy charitable trust. Going back a few years, for the last 35 years, I've been a sports commentator, rural commentator, host of the Young Farmer of the Year contest, and I've spent a lot of time in rural New Zealand and rural communities all around the world, commentating rodeos and jet sprinting and all sorts of things. So I've made a career out of commentating. And so from there I wanted to really get in behind and support those communities that supported me. And I learned a lot about what makes a good community. So strong people make strong communities make strong people.
Yeah.
So all the way through that, it's never ever been about the commentator. It's always been about the message that I'm trying to get, which is what are people doing and why they're doing it, and why do people want to know about it, and how can we transfer that? So that's the role of the commentator. During March of 2020, I was with a few commentators at the Rural Games up in Palmerston North, and I realised that COVID was on our doorstep, and in fact that was the last major rural event in New Zealand for 2020. And a week later, I had a huge whiteboard, full of work, including my clerk of the course, commentating, MC work and everything. I just wiped off. And I've never been at home much in the last 35 years. In fact, I only had about 5 birthdays at home since my 21st. So I joke that when I married my wife, Annabelle, that I wouldn't be around much, and she thought it was a good gig, so she said yes. So, but I've been on the road for a long time, and all of a sudden had no work. And I was walking around home going, what the heck am I going to do? A small dairy grazing block. Things were pretty stressful, and I had a young family to look after. So I started up Zoom meetings. Knew nothing about Zoom meetings. I thought that was a fast red car. So we started up Zoom meetings, and the first Zoom meeting we had, we called it Whatever with Wiggy, because we weren't too sure what we were going to be discussing. And we just...
So did you start that with an intention just to help people in general? Like, that was your...
If I've got to be totally honest, a little bit like a Thirsty Thursday for farmers that were stuck in the middle of nowhere. So we decided...
isolation was huge, right?
COVID locked the doors, locked the gates on farmers. Farmers always knew they could get off farm, but all of a sudden there were shut gates. So what we did is every Thursday night, we would put out on Facebook a Zoom link meeting, and people would come in. The first meeting we had 15 computers hooked to mine, of which we had some shearers or some farmers, I should say, in a shearing shed playing pool and pew, just joining and discussing. So we got a few people in. We got some amazing people in. So David Fagan was our first guest. And he talked about the trouble that we were going to have getting people into the country for shearing through COVID. And then we had Corrigan Salmon, who'd done a Nuffield scholarship on the way farmers think and the mental health component. We had Damien O'Connor come in quite a few times. For a long time there, we were the only go-to during COVID where farmers could actually interact with politicians and stuff like that. One night we had 83 computers hooked to mine and Damien O'Connor in there talking about intensive winter grazing, stuff like that. We also had politicians out of Auckland in that discussing drug referendums. Chloe Swarbrick, she came in and we had 54 people there that night, which is really good until the swans fly into the next door neighbour's transformer and shut all the power down on the road. And then you got to do it through a phone. But this became a real thing. And prior to that, prior to COVID, I'd met up with Aaron Major, and Aaron introduced me to Slade, and I got Slade, who was at that stage the front person for Mates in Construction, to come along and talk about his experiences, and then this friendship developed, didn't it? And Slade and I realised we're both in the same playing field. He is with Mates in Construction, was dealing with some stuff, and I was helping out with farmers. And Slade came to a couple of our Zoom meetings and realised pretty quickly that farmers had some issues that were totally out of their control.
Yeah.
And Ollie, you talk about that really. Those first Zoom meetings, you didn't really know much about farming, did you?
No, and that's why I said to you at the end of the day, country calendar used to be the one that you used to switch off,
Yep.
and now I actually watch it.
Yeah.
But even still, with the country calendar, it only shows the good side of mostly what farming community are dealing with and what's positive.
Yeah.
But the darker side of mostly what that looks like, and it's mostly from mates in construction to understand, is that we became number one in the suicide rate, and farmers became second. When farmers used to be number one. And so, to get on board with Wiggy and actually see how we can see a lot of the things that I learned in mates, how they can be transferable for our farmers as well. One of the biggest issues that we have is mostly with those kind of podcasts, with the isolation, is that you can't get to them as quick as you'd like to. And you're just trying to give them skills or tools enough to actually cope with what's going on around them. But that was a hard time because you could never really get to where they are because they're so isolated, and you weren't allowed to get there. So the best format was actually to work through that Zoom. But like Craig said, the more that we started doing and actually hearing, my recollection actually is a farmer harvesting during the night and talking to us while he's in his tractor. So those kind of things were massive, like really impactful to me. And how can I actually get on board and actually help Craig to actually facilitate that? So
because here's the thing, I think that's the thing, well, not the interesting thing, it's the sad thing that people probably don't realise. There was no real hope or help for people before this, right? Even mates in construction, there's not that much help before you guys, and then with what you're doing now with helping farmers, there wasn't really anyone doing it.
There's a lot of top driven stuff. There's a lot of big companies and a lot of I call them mental health celebrities doing a lot of work, but it wasn't at grassroots level. And I've been based in rural communities and small communities my whole life. And I realised that there's a lot of people in small communities that can support those people that are in their communities, and the connections that the rural service industries like your stock agents and your agronomists and vets have with their clients and colleagues. They already see the signs, but they don't know what to do with it or how to transfer that knowledge or help there. So that sort of came out of the whatever with Wiggy stuff, and we carried on with those Zoom meetings right through COVID times, and then in 2021, I actually lost a couple of friends through suicide. Rodeo friends too, one in Canada and one in Wairau, and I'd had a lot to do with both of them. And I went, what are we actually missing? And so that's when I did a basic video of me leaning on a gate and suggesting that everybody goes back in the day when farmers used to go to sale yards on a Thursday or Friday afternoon. Didn't matter if they were selling or buying anything, they just used to go to the sale yards and get connected, and they'd lean on a gate and talk to a mate. And they'd discuss stuff, this is 20 years ago. So I challenged people on social media to take 5 minutes out of their day and lean on a gate and talk to a mate. Now, that could have been their partners, it could have been their work staff, it could have been their dog, their horse, or just look at the place that they lived in and appreciate it. But what I did do was I got people to go back in their cell phone and look at somebody that from a time where they were most happy and basically call that person that they hadn't been in touch with for some time and check up on them. And especially during COVID. And that really struck in a chord. So a lot of people did that. I think the video was viewed 140,000 times, and there was about 300 people at least got in touch with me and said, hey, we checked on Slade or Scott and they're not in a good space, or they checked on me and I'm not in a good space. What do we do about that? And that sort of developed, and it got the ball rolling to where we are now, where lean on a gate, talk to a mate is a catchphrase that is used quite often and sometimes plagiarised, but at least it's out there. We don't own it; it's for everybody to use, and it's become a thing to the point where that work became noticed, and fortunately, I was awarded the Ravenstown Agricultural Communicator of the Year for that, and that's let us do more and become able to be more relevant in that space. So Slade and I both believe that it's never about us, it's about the message. So the message is the campaign, and we're the delivery boys that bring it. So
but it's I love, like, as soon as I heard about it, because my background from grandfather's side's farming, right?
Mhm.
And I just remember going as young fellas, and my uncles and that, they'd pull up on the side of the road and they'd talk to all their mates, you know, and they'd probably
Yeah.
have a beer and all that sort of stuff. But it was a real, like, you did talk back in the day, and I think probably as media, social media, and all that sort of stuff, maybe it become less and less. And then obviously COVID, you didn't realize, because everyone lived in their own bubble during COVID. And I think if you're listening to this
That's
and
exactly right.
you're watching this, you knew everything you were going through, but you never thought about what other people were going through, right? And like, man, just imagine being on a farm. You probably still had to work, probably still had a whole bunch of stress.
And your gates were shut.
Gates were shut, so
You didn't have those people turning up that normally
Yeah,
turn up,
turn up.
like your stock agents and your vets
Yeah.
and your agronomists. A lot of stuff was done remotely over the
Yeah.
phone, and so people were really, really stuck. And the Zoom meetings sometimes on Thursday nights, there'd be more people who apologise for not making an old Zoom meeting
yeah,
than actually would turn up. But we regularly had 30 to 40 computers hooked to ours every Thursday night, and we discussed everything. You know, we had Aaron Major and the boys on one night, and we discussed what that Type 5 friendship that they have and how that's helped them go up and down.
yeah.
You know, we had all sorts of stuff in there, and we tried to keep it entertaining but also interactive. So it was great.
So Lean on a Gate now, you know, you've got, obviously, you know, you said you guys are the messengers for it, but you know, what is the core? I guess what is the core of what you're trying to achieve, and leaning on a gate and getting people to, you know, talk. But what is it? What is it? If you know, you look down the camera here and talk to people, what is it? Connection. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So strong. Yeah.
Strong connection. But I think the thing is, as being a messenger more than anything, is that you have to put yourself out there, because you got to show your failures and your frailties, because you know, you can always talk about the good things that you've done, but behind the scenes there are dark parts about what we've all been through and what we've actually experienced. It's about sharing it with them, that they feel as though that they're not alone, that what they've gone through is that, you know, they're isolated, because the thing is, as men, we already have a level of isolation already, being a man,
True.
because there's an expectation. We're providers.
Providers,
All these type of things that we have to give to not just our colleagues, to our families, and then feel as though that, you know, there's that level of expectation of whether we meet that. You know, now we look at our farmers. Now, farmers, you know, you're talking about fourth generation farmers.
Totally.
Now look at the pressure they're already. It's almost like wearing a black jersey. You know, you watch the All Blacks. There's a whole lot of history. Well, all these farmers have got history.
Totally.
You know, and so when those kind of history is sitting there, they are sizing themselves up against it, and the expectation of being able to follow through. So we're just trying to really come down to the forefront. My story is just really to share it with these guys and say, I'm a human being. I have my flaws. But what are
some of the things that you share then, Slade? Because I think it's more people are going to watch this and they're going to hear about you, and I think it's, you know, you've got an interesting story to tell for people.
Oh, I think everybody has an interesting story to tell. It's just being brave enough to actually tell it. And then, you know, it's finding similarities. As I said before, isolation for men is very real. For myself, being a professional rugby player for 16 years, went to France for 3, and then all of a sudden the reality of coming home. Now, I had a young family, and then, you know, that expectation of actually providing was huge. So in my mental state, I didn't do too well. And not because of just the mere fact of having a young family. I really, you know, to be frankly honest, when you're a rugby player and you be put on that kind of pedestal, there's only one way to go. That's down. You know, and how to deal with that. You're not given those skills to deal with, you know, the change of life from an abundance of money. Now you're working like the real people that are out there 5 to 5. You know, 12-hour job, doing all those type of things. And I couldn't cope. And then, so not talking to anybody, thinking, which is a very manly way of saying it, but we're very good problem solvers. And we try and solve our problems. And now my problem is not your problem. So why you got your nose stuck in it? For? And that's how we attack it. Where we, you know, when people who actually care, we want to actually be brave enough to let them in. You know. And the thing is that I learned from mates is that, you know, that how can I possibly do this job? Because we have a very strong tendency to do what I say, not what I do. But the problem is that if the person who's actually conveying that and doing everything that's opposite, the person who's on the receiving end will not
No.
do what's required.
No.
So and so the thing is that how can I be in this space if I'm not looking after myself?
Yeah.
If I'm not looking after myself mentally. So I do go to therapy.
Yeah.
I go every month. I've actually got my session tomorrow afternoon. And I'm not afraid to say that because I call her my incinerator because I can go with my garbage and I just dump it. She gets to burn it and I get to leave with a clear mind to actually deal with the next month that is coming. So it's just really just understanding that what I went through is that I went to a really dark place. I actually entertained suicide because I thought that was my way out. And then I actually said, oh, look, I'll actually go have therapy. And I went to
Did
the
you
doctor.
catch yourself before that? Did you catch yourself thinking that way, or was it? And then I'm going to go to therapy. Did someone come to you and say, "Hey, you should go to therapy"?
I think I had a lot of people saying that there's something wrong with you. You know, and I think a very male trait is that no, there's nothing wrong with me. What's wrong? You know? But the thing is, what I learned through mates and also was that those signs were showing that when we don't cope too well, we actually do send signals out, but they're not the most positive signals. Like, for example, someone who may be not a heavy drinker, a big drinker, now is drinking a lot more than usual, or and then going through pornographic stuff, and then all these things that are coming out. But yet we see it, but then we just don't have the tools to say, hey, I think something's wrong.
And it's interesting, you've mentioned especially tools, a number of times now, and I think I really want to get to that conversation a bit, and later on about that, because I think that is the key, right? You've got to get those tools to get 100%. Yourself back on track. One thing I heard the other day, and I think it was really interesting about this whole conversation, and it was talking to your kids, right? And this lady said to me, and she actually said to a group of people, but it was quite profound. And we talked about it afterwards, and I actually shared it with a number of my mates. Is if your kids ask you how your day was, you don't actually have to say it was great all the time. You can actually just be honest and say, I had a shit day. And that's like, when I thought about that, and I was like, wow, how many times people say to you, oh, how's your day? And you're like, oh yeah, it's great, everything's great. Well, if it's not, actually be honest with your children, because obviously if they're not feeling great, then they don't know how to express that they're not feeling great.
They'll already know.
Yeah.
Your children are sponges, and that's a field that I'm a Board of Trustees chair at a school, and we see the results of, especially in rural New Zealand, some of the stresses and stuff coming through into the schools now. The teachers that I talk to are quite aware of the family dynamics and the financial restraints and stuff really creeping into the young kids. And the kids are doing children, I should say, are doing the same thing. They're reserving and withdrawing in school or acting up a little bit. And a lot of that is stimulated from the stuff that's happening at home. And we talk about Slade's journey, and you talk about Jason Herrick, who's one of our trustees as well. The stress in his journey through attempted suicide and stuff, it basically really, what it did to his wife and family is unmeasurable, but it's definitely there and visible. So I guess, the beauty of having Slade on board and Jason is their stories are very, very relevant from different aspects from, and for me, it's a matter about making sure that, as Slade was saying, there's a lot of people notice those subtle changes. And sometimes not so subtle, but what do they do with that? Yes. And I've seen this void in rural New Zealand and communities. There's a lot of siloing, and people don't understand what's actually available in their communities. And for me, as a commentator and rural advocate, the strength of the community is the driving force for that for me. And we know that there is a lot of good people out there ready to help. They just need to know that it's okay. So if the vet sees somebody or something going on farm that's not 100%, what does the vet do with that knowledge, and how can we do stuff? And so I've advocated with MPI in that space when there's been an issue, and asked MPI to come in with a welfare team rather than a regulatory team. When there's been a human welfare, animal welfare issue. There's all sorts of things that we can do because we're able to be in this space and we have an understanding in it, and we try and look at the big picture. So we use quite a few tools as to actually how do we have these conversations. But the first conversation is listen to your gut. What's your gut telling you about the person that's in front of you?
Okay.
And that and we can go into that at a later date about how your amygdala and all that works. But basically, if your gut's telling you something's wrong, your brain will be thinking about that for a long time, and you need to act on that. Otherwise, your mental health gets affected by what you're seeing too. So really, really important stuff.
So you guys are out there now, and you're talking to communities, and like a good example is today. You've got you guys are busy, right? You from here, you're going to Eddington Raceway, I believe, and you're doing some stuff there, and then obviously tomorrow you're talking at a place. So people are getting you to come out now and have conversations. Like, how are they contacting you first? And obviously, you know, do you have a sort of a format that you're sharing, and what's your way of getting that message across to people? Because I think there's more and more people want to have this conversation because they see what's going on, right? There's more stress than ever in anyone's lives, right?
Yeah.
And I think the more we can break this down and help more people, the better. So how's that kind of evolving?
Oh, so for me, a lot of it has been promotion around the Lean on a Gate message.
Yep.
I already have fairly well known through media circles in rural New Zealand, but I've lent on a few mates, like some of the radio stations and that I worked at with the young farmers and stuff like that. We've also done a lot of social media, and now we're really grateful for the support that this team here is helping us with. But it's a lot of it is actually word of mouth.
Yeah.
Social media has a lot to it. We ran the Agri Connect days as well. The rural support trusts are starting to look to us to help out in their space as well. And one of the things is that I've found all the way through, whether it's setting up the trusts or helping people out, a lot of people offer you help because they've had a result from suicide, or they've been touched by mental health themselves, and they want to give back. So they facilitate a lot of help for us to actually get out in the communities and be out there where it's needed. And I can just about guarantee that everybody that gets on the phone and rings me up now will have a backstory. And they just want to give back because they've worked their way through something. But a lot of it is word of mouth. And now with the media that we're looking to have on our side, we're very humbled by it. And you know, I call it the best brain fart I ever had was Lean on a Gate, talk to a mate. But
seriously,
it came from a serious place. And I think the other thing, Slade and I have never been wanting to make millions of dollars out of this. We just want to help people. And if you're out there and you're in that space and you just want to help people, listen to your gut and talk. Listen to the people. Get into a space of empathy with them, and listen to what they have to say. You know, and then uplift them. Tell them things are going to be all right. Get them off their situation that they're in just briefly, and that's it right there. Cheer. So that is connect, hear them out, uplift them, reassure and reaffirm. So you're going to
so let's go again.
Connection.
Yep.
So have some empathy and find out what's going on. Get into their space a little bit. Hear them out, and then uplift them, and then reassure and refer. So when we say reassure and reassure that you're on their side and you're going to be here for the long haul.
Yeah.
And then refer them. If you've heard them earlier on when you've connected and listened, you might be able to refer them to a marriage guidance counsellor. You might be even able to take them to a doctor and go to the doctor with them, which we do quite regularly, and actually sit in the doctor's room and say, look, I had this conversation with Scott, and things aren't the best, and he might tell you, but I can tell you what he told me if you like. And then actually later on, once you've left the doctor's surgery, translate that back to Scott when he's in a better space to hear it. So it is that CHER acronym, connection, hearing, uplift, reassure, and refer.
Like for me personally, I had an experience with an employee years and years ago, and it was really confronting because I'd never come across someone who had depression or anything like that before. And someone said to me, he said, Scott, how would you treat them if they walked in here with a broken leg? And I said, well, I'd pull the chair out and I'd be doing all this sort of stuff. And he says, well, it's what they've got is worse than a broken leg. And I'd never
you can't see it. That's
and I never really understood that before. And when he said that to me, I was like, man, you're an idiot. Like me, you know, the way because New Zealanders, or not even New Zealanders, men, take a concrete pill, you know. And that was my thinking around it. And then I did some research into it. And one of the things, and it's a love that you've connected empathy, because empathy it was really interesting for me learning that, hey, you can't just tell someone to go for a walk. Go with them. And I was like, wow, that's one thing that I could do is go with them versus, you're depressed, you should just exercise. It doesn't work like
No.
that. And that's, for me, that was a big learning to actually have that empathy with people.
And that's where the uplifting can be. Like you'll have something in common with those people, like whether it's golf or fishing or even just having a beer. So uplift them by taking them away, uplift them out of the situation they're in, and take them to a situation where they might feel a little bit better to be connected and heard, But you've just showed me there, the first time that this confronts you, you're not quite sure how to do it. And so for us, the rural service industries, for example, the young agronomists and vets, one guy told me, I was commentating here at the local Kiwi field days, that he talked to one of his clients about what it was going to cost to clean his seeds for the year, specialty seeds. And it was quite expensive. And he said the farmer sat down on a bucket and cried in front of me. And he said, I had no idea why he was crying, what I was going to do about it, and whether I should leave him or what I should do. And so in our talks, we do a lot of that. This is the plan. This is what you do if somebody's in danger and stuff like that. So there's a fair bit involved in that.
And that's the tools that people need, because it is kind of confronting. Like it's in any situation, especially that's new. It's like, what the hell do I do? So what you guys are going in there, and this is so powerful, is you're actually giving people those tools. And this connect, I think, is a big one. Like obviously, people. A lot of men don't know how to connect. Would you say that's
and that's huge for our men, because the thing is that I know if you had your best mate, you do everything in your power to look after them.
Yeah.
But the thing is that when we do it for other people that we don't know, but they show the evidence, we're not too sure how to approach it.
No.
So what we want to do is try and break down those barriers and just say, he's no different. Just treat him like he was your best mate. What will you be doing? Exactly what you just said about if someone came in with a broken leg, well, you'll be doing everything you can.
Right. Put your leg
up, this is what I need to do.
I'll call someone.
Exactly. No. But that's exactly what we need to be doing in the mental, we call it mental distress.
Yeah.
Because each and every one of us have a level of mental distress that we go through. But sometimes it can be that time when the cup is just too full.
Too full, yeah.
And it just overflows.
Because it's stacked on it.
Exactly. So we know that, and I know personally for myself, the experience of what that looks like, because, at the end of the day, we need to change the actual, we always say, monkey see, monkey do.
Yep.
Whether we like it or not, our kids will watch us from a young age. And so how we deal with things, they are going to be slowly programmed to deal with it the same way.
Yeah.
And so we want to try and break that mold.
Yeah.
And how we can go about by actually giving those tools and by telling our story, so that our men can actually make better conscious decisions when it comes to about what that looks like and how do we involve our family, because they're going to need you. Yeah. Because I tell you what, your kid's going to act out.
Yeah.
Or if he's not part of that decision.
Yes.
We've seen that too. Like what's actually been stimulated to us and is spoken about quite regularly is how our forefathers came home from war damaged, and they imprinted their children, and their children imprinted their children. And this generation now are actually talking about it and trying to say, this is enough, this is where it stops.
Yeah.
So why mental health has become more apparent now is that people are more educated about the positives and negatives and what actually affects them. And so that we're hoping that this generation will leave the next generation. We always hope that in a better space. So there's so many things that are affecting people that they're not sure what it is. And occasionally I'll get phone calls from people that Slade's in trouble, what do I do? And I go, okay, tell me what you're saying, who's his best mate, or who does he have the most to do with? And then I'll ring that person or go through social media and find out who's a contact, and then try and get a backstory, and then say, well, look, I've got somebody that's really concerned about Slade. Can you do this for me? Because this can be from a person ringing from Dable, for example. And that has happened. I've had phone calls at 2:00 in the morning from people that are worried about Jim, who's gone missing with a rifle in the car. And those, you don't have choices but to be involved at that time. There's a lot of stuff that we do behind the scenes that goes under the radar quite a lot too. But if you actually look to the wives and the children, you'll get a lot of information there too. And there's plenty of times where a wife's been in a rural service store, for example, and they've been trying to buy a pair of jeans, and they're worried about they've left their husband at home alone. They can't remember what size jeans he takes. They've been married to him for 30 years, but they're more worried about what he's likely to be doing at home.
Wow.
And we talked about this at a Agri Connect Day in Northland just after the cyclones. And one young girl who worked for a rural service company said, "Well, we had that happen. This lady was in buying clothes and stuff for her husband, and then went home and found that he'd taken his life."
Jeez.
And so that's a real thing.
Yeah.
And so that young lady that was in the rural service industry was connected to this and really, really didn't perhaps get the support she needed to
Yeah,
work
yeah.
her way through it. So if you're a business and you have a tragedy come knocking on your door, it'd be Slade and my honour to come and help you try and work your way through that with your staff and develop some programs and bits and pieces.
Yeah.
But even just open conversation around stuff, and probably with my communication skills, Slade's, he's well experienced in being part of a team. We can do that,
Yeah.
we can actually, and the workshops that we have, and especially when I went to America to do this work just recently, we realised that the tools and the workshops that we're doing, which come from a grassroots level of
Yeah.
connection, really work.
Yeah.
Mm.
So just even that one tool we've talked about there, though, like churn, like that's something that everyone could take away,
100%,
connect, have empathy, have a discussion and uplift, reassure and refer. And refer really is, to come to you guys or to get involved
No,
in
probably
that community.
the reference.
Yeah.
Listen first, and you'll find out
Yeah,
what's
and
driving it.
then because it could be anything, it could be financial, it could be all those kind of things
Yeah.
that they're worried about, and it's we're not saying, hey, we're the one-stop shop.
Yeah.
What we're saying is that
We're the
we're just facilitators. We're just trying to make sure that hey, in this rural area, this is what the support is. What does it look
Nice.
like? So
Yes.
we can actually say yes, there's a 0800 number, but we just want to make sure that there's gems of gold that are actually amongst our communities, and how do we actually get them connected?
And I think that's an interesting thing as well. Like, it's about making, and this is what I'm hearing from you guys, it's making these communities stronger, making these communities more connected, and yeah, they might be connected, but having maybe some of these tough conversations
100%.
that we're not having or haven't been having.
Yeah.
So we've really focused today on the mental health side of things, and I'm all about community strength. One of the things that I got involved in a few years ago, and I'm now backed by the Car Family Foundation, which own Carfields, is actually physical health checks on rural people in places
Yes.
like sale yards,
Yes.
stock sales, machinery sales, rural events. So the Car Family Foundation have supplied us with a van, and we've got nurses all around the country that have been to some of our Agri Cadet days as well. And we'll actually go and do some physical health checks on
Cool.
people. And you'll find a farmer that's 65, 70 years old and say, I haven't been to a doctor since I had my tonsils out. Or but we'll also have a stock agent go, see that young farmer over there, his father died at a young age, and there's some family history, and we're actually quite worried about him. He's one of our top clients. And so we go there
Wow.
and we'll do health checks on farmers, just a basic 5-point health check. Pre-COVID, we were around 24 to 26% needed to be further investigated by a doctor.
Yeah.
Since COVID times and the restrictions that farmers are feeling getting to a doctor nowadays,
Yeah.
it can be quite easy, 30 to 35% of the people
Wow.
we check on the day. And
Then you got the ones that just avoid it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They know straight away.
They already know. Some of them have been looked after already, or they just don't want to know.
Yeah.
But the ones that come in and make an informed decision, and some of the conversations that we have, like poor physical health, will lead to poor mental health, and vice versa too. So if we can cover all aspects of that, that's a really good thing. And people like the Car Family have got right behind us in that space, and we're going to be at the showgrounds this week doing some more stuff with the show coming up. But it's really important to get the similarities between physical health and mental health, and vice versa, and then look at community health too and what that means.
It's an amazing journey that you guys have come on from whatever with Wiggy on the Zoom calls, right? You've obviously getting a knowledge of what's going on in the community, and not only just mentally but physically, and really making change. So when we look to the future for you guys, what is the future? What is it that you want to help more people with, and how can communities and people watching this help you?
I think for me is always about the strength of those smaller communities. Like Slade just mentioned gems. There are people in every community that can help somebody somehow. And that can be as simple as picking up a kid off a bus for somebody that's under the pump and looking after them for a night.
Okay.
Babysitting their farm while they need a weekend away. Cooking some meals. If somebody's wife's in hospital, husband's in hospital, cook some meals. Just go back to what we used to do. Lean over the fence, lean on the gate, talk to a mate, share the load. everybody's in the same boat in a community. Things that are affecting your neighbour will be affecting you.
Yeah.
And sharing the load and coming up with a consensus or coming up with a plan for the community to fix its community problems, or at least get in front of the politicians or
Yeah.
whoever they need to, and get stuff. So for me, we've taken on some new trustees. Cheyenne Wilson, young Maori lady that's had really had a big space for the Whatever with Wiggy or the Lean on a Gate website. We want to have geographical help available through that website. So there's some amazing people out there doing the work, and if we can give them a home to come into and advertise what they're doing in their own communities, like the Rural Support Trust, the Catherine Wrights and the Sam McBrides and those people that are doing a lot of work in that space, the Rural Chaplaincy Service, if we can all hook them into this website that we've got going up this week, that's the thing for us, is to those gems, if we can put them in one place and give them support, and get that strength of community. Whatever with Wiggy became an online community. In fact, once the COVID restrictions were lifted, people from Kerikeri went and saw Jason Herrick, who's another one of our trustees in Southland, and visited people that had been on the Whatever with Wiggy. So we started an online community that became
awesome.
Physical community. And for us in New Zealand, and actually even in the work I've just done in America, Whatever with Wiggy and Lean on a Gate is a community that is sharing that simple message of taking 5 minutes out of your day.
Lean on a Gate and talk to a mate.co.nz is going to be, I really believe, a driving force, because it's going to empower everything that you guys are doing to help more people. And I guess that's the message today is, 5 minutes, you have a conversation, and it just starts with, hey, picking up the phone.
One of the problems is that, the hippocampus is our memory bank. It's the bit that stores all the good stuff. And that gets shut down. Depression comes along and kicks it out the door, and we forget. And a lot of people, when they're depressed or having mental health issues or distress, they actually forget the last time they were happy.
Wow.
So I always joke that, like, ring somebody from where you were chasing girls around the bike sheds, or you were playing rugby, or I was radioing or doing whatever in your happy times. It made you laugh thinking about it because you probably chased a girl around the bike shed. But what I'm saying is, get back to that space where you were young and before all of the stresses of the world ended up on your doorstep, and connect with those people and have a laugh about things that you did in your past, and kick that happy side of you back into gear, and enjoy enjoy life, and look at the reasons that you've taken the journey into the career that you were first went into, and are those reasons still relevant? And quite a lot of the work Slade and I've done recently has been giving people permission to either investigate or make changes in their life because they're stuck on that Ferris wheel. And
because the biggest thing, and this is to everybody here, the biggest thing is time. Time of how you spend it. Because at the end of the day, that's the best commodity that we actually do have is time. Because once you spend it, it's done. And we can invest a lot of money and we can lose money. We can make money back, but time we can never make back. So what we do say is that the time that you use, the best way possible. That's why we've both dedicated, and we've just turned around and said to each other, this is what I want to do until my last breath on this earth, is to give back to our communities, look after them, because that is the best thing we can give back is time. And really get into, like we talk about, connecting, because I know each and every one of you, when you go and see your mate, and I know you start dredging up all the past about all the good things that you did, and you feel so happy about what you do when you walk away from that actual meeting, because it's reconnecting again. And we sometimes miss it. And then we find ourselves in a position where we can be very isolated. So time is what we need.
The 10th most popular use, I believe, for your phone these days is to ring somebody. And, back in the day, it was all about communicating. You'd ring somebody up. Oh, I haven't heard from you for a long time. And so the way algorithms on social media and stuff work, you can get yourself into a pretty negative space.
Totally.
So if you can go back to using your phone for what it was designed for and calling somebody, it's really, really important. In the workshops we do, a lot of it is pretty much read in the room. I'm going to go to a friend of mine, and he won't mind me mentioning his name, Jay Bird from over in the fencing conference in America. He brought his daughter along to the fencing conference and as a father-daughter trip. And he got up and he said, look, I have real trouble when we're doing a workshop, balancing the financial requirements of my family and the time management of being a good father and a good partner, a good husband. And we talked about if one side's up and one side's down,
Yeah.
you're going to be the one in the middle that's really stressing out, and you're obviously there because you brought this to the table.
Yeah.
So after the next day, I had a pink whatever with Wiggy lean on the gate hat. And so I put that on his daughter during the workshop the next day. And she was only, I don't know, 9 years old, I suppose. And I said to her, when you think Dad's been working too hard or you want some time with Dad, you put this hat on.
Mm.
And the best time to do that will be Sunday afternoon. Well, Dad just blew into tears right there. And I was pretty wound up too because I'd given that girl permission to give Dad time off.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, good.
and it was pretty good stuff, you know. But that came out of the reading of the room.
Yeah.
These are some of the things that we quite regularly do is we read the room
Yeah.
and say, what is this? By connecting, hearing, then we can uplift and reassure, you know. So but by reading is such a simple thing to do. And sure enough, Jay Bird sent me a photo
That's
a little
cool.
while ago of his daughter wearing a hat. We're having an afternoon. you
That's
know. So
awesome.
it's just simple stuff.
Yeah,
It's not hard. It's just
But
getting back to basics.
You know, my grandmother, she was brought up on a farm, and she's how many generations? Like she just, I remember always saying, you know, a problem shared is a problem halved.
Yeah.
And I always remember her saying that, right? And my grandfather, he was a great farmer, he had 2 farms, and then one day he got hit on the head by a post thing in the wall, putting in posts, and he ended up becoming an alcoholic and passed away. But you know, she always said share the problems, and I think, you know, what I've heard from you guys today is, and like, you've got to communicate, and we've got to be better at communicating, we've got to be better at sharing, and that starts with picking up the phone or going and see someone, leaning on a gate and talking to them, and you know, being vulnerable enough to say, how are you going?
Yeah.
And
100%.
listening, you know,
Yeah.
and then reconnecting on some good stuff, because and this is, and I just go from my own experience, I did not know this person was depressed and was having bad thoughts,
Well,
right? Where it was working
can't
for
see
me.
it.
Couldn't see it, and all I could start to see is some things were going wrong,
Yeah.
and some things were, and it was like, whoa, something must be happening,
Yeah.
and then started that conversation, and so grateful that we did, but you've just got to be prepared to halve that
Yeah.
problem, right?
100%.
Or not even, you know, just
And believe me, what you will get back is twice as much as you
tenfold.
give. If you have some mental distress or you're worried about your own situation, give back to your community and actually get involved with other people in your community, and you'll start to feel the result of that. Slade and I are very, very wealthy men for the experiences we've had helping people. And I'm not talking about financial.
No.
I mean, when you actually have people, I can tell you how it works out. When COVID restrictions were lifted, and I actually ended up getting back on the road doing some commentating and also clerk of the coursework, I came home one day and here's my 9-year-old daughter with a basket full of goodies and, you know, flowers and bits and pieces and vouchers. Some people from the whatever with Wiggy community had snuck around to my place and given my family a gift basket and thanked them for lending my services to them. And I thought we were just having Zoom meetings, but it became quite apparent we actually saved some lives.
Oh.
You know, and when your daughter says she's proud of you, and this always gets to me,
Yeah.
when your daughter says she's proud of you for what you've saved somebody's life,
Yeah.
that's the best accolade in the world. And what that does for your own space is incredible. So believe me, guys, if you know of somebody in trouble, reach out, give back. You'll get as much back in spades as what you get. Occasionally you get your fingers burnt, but not very often.
No.
Okay, so we're serious. We lean on a gate.co.nz. You know, we're serious about having these conversations. You've got some really cool buttons here. You've got talk to a mate. You've got find a mate. Talk us a wee bit through about that as we kind of roll into really. We want to make sure people are going there to this website and start using it as a resource to help these communities.
Yeah, so talk to a mate is all about knowing who to talk to and what and where, and find a mate is finding those services that are available. So this is a work in process, this new website, and I must thank the people that are behind it that have developed it. It's pretty cool. Like this is an interactive website, leanonthegate.co.nz. Hopefully you'll be able to come in with what you need, what you think you might need, and find those geographical services that are available in your area and also other areas. And and also we'll have some experts in there under that find a mate tag that deal specifically with things like succession planning, financial, matrimonial, even physical health. For instance, I was talking to an eye doctor the other day. She said, "Oh, farmers, they've got the worst eyesight in the world because of some of the stuff they do." So we'll have people like her in there
Brilliant.
talking about that as well. So there's so many different services we'll be able to put into that space, and hopefully if you can come in and flow through it like a river, you'll find what you need out the other end.
Yeah.
And also, of course, while we have been talking about mental health and suicide and that, there is always those helplines like 1737, the government agency, and Rural Support Trust, and there's a myriad of them, and I'm sure Scott will put them on the end of this video. But just make sure you do reach out.
Yeah, and also, like, obviously, you guys would be at events. You're at, you're speaking at corporates. You're speaking for farming. So definitely people should make time to come and see you guys, right?
Oh, 100%.
And again, I mean,
that's what we have.
Once again, it's all about time,
Yeah.
and sharing that. And I think one thing that I'd like to share with your team is that do this small exercise. It's such a small exercise. You actually write your age down, and then you just draw a line to infinity. And then, you might have an idea when you possibly may pass away, but you break it down into 5-year increments, and then you put your wife down and then your kids underneath.
Wow.
And when you do that, you'll actually see the ages start to change as time goes on. And then you start to look at how well do I want to spend my time?
Mm-hmm.
How well do I want to look at it? Because you look at your children, all of a sudden they're 15, and then they're 20. Then they could be having kids.
Yeah.
So all these things play into an effect because it actually will show you what that looks like. And then it will actually make you sit down and actually really think about how you want to spend your time.
Yeah. And you've got to, forget me if I've got this wrong, but are you looking at, like, to get people to look at their time horizon and realize they actually have more time than they think they have right now as far as what their thinking is going on? If they're thinking that way, because under pressure, and you'll know this from high performance, right? Under pressure, you generally you focus too narrow. Like when your stress comes on.
Yeah.
But high performance teaches you to actually bring that focus in, because a lot of times when people are thinking either too far away, too far in the past or too far in the future, they take their focus off what's here now.
Yeah.
And this exercise focus gets you look a little bit out, but hey, what's here now is actually pretty good for you, right?
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to, instead of future gaze, just look what's here now.
What's here now.
And then actually what you can control. And that's a lot of things that sometimes the things that we can't control,
which
we actually
triggers the stress, which
Exactly,
triggers the whole emotion, which triggers the whole the depressive side or the suicidal tendencies, because I'm thinking too much. Versus what I can control is what I can control.
Yeah.
And what you can control is it's a conversation with someone, is sharing, hey, how you're thinking.
That's right.
That's the number one thing you can control. Right?
And I think also to appreciate where you are in that space. I mean, that lean on the gate, I did mention in there that, take 5 minutes to have a look around and look at the beautiful place we live in and all the things that are positive in your life. Actually take 5 minutes out to assess where you are and how you've got there is really, really important. And focus on that. And is it still relevant? And the other thing I think we also need to do is to forgive our past, like forgive things that have happened that have in a negative space, that you may have made mistakes or something's affected you negatively. You've lost a job out of your control or something's happened. Like you have to forgive. And in future podcasts, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about some of the stuff that I've had to forgive through my life. But definitely, if you're going to hold on to those past inaccuracies or idiosyncrasies that you're looking at as affecting you in the future, then you're never going to be able to walk forward. So that timeline thing of Slade's is quite good, because we're here now and in our 50s, and so we got here, we've made it this far. What do we want to achieve in the next 20, 30, hopefully 40 odd years? And then we can draw a plan as to what that is. There's so much to be done that you can do and control. What you can't control is what's behind you.
Yeah. No, totally. Guys, this is an amazing conversation, and yes, we're going to do more to get the word out, and I guess you guys sharing your skills and even tools that you guys have had. Slade, I love that exercise, and also, you know, just focusing on the positive is and what's around you, looking at things that are good, right? It's sometimes I think we get too caught up in our own stuff that we forget how good maybe we have got it. So, guys, this has been a really good conversation. I really appreciate you guys taking the time. I know you guys are busy. Where do people go now as we kind of wrap this up? And is there anything else you'd want to share just before we close this up? Because this has been a real powerful conversation, but it's only the start of a conversation, and then we just want to make sure people know that this is the start of a conversation for you. If you're watching this and going through some things, it's the start of a conversation, and you need to reach out because these guys can help you. They've got other people that can help you, but what would you say to that? What else do you want to let people to know before we wrap this up?
Oh, I think the one thing for me, the most important thing you can do is listen to your gut. And if you, like Slade mentioned before, you've got a significant other or somebody that's in your life that you're concerned about, or somebody's acting in a way that's pretty negative towards you, look at the big picture and what's behind that. At the moment, we've got people in schools and principals and even McDonald's stores saying, please be kind to our staff. Everybody seems to be up for a fight at the moment. Try not to react, just respond. But the biggest thing is if your gut's telling you that there's something wrong with somebody you love in your life or are friends with, act on that. Number one, it's really good for your mental health and well-being. You might just save somebody and you certainly won't do any harm. So be involved, be more community-minded, and you'll be surprised what comes out of that.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think the thing is from each and every one of our males, we're not alone in this. We have our pressures of what that all looks like, is being able to share the good, bad, and ugly. Being able to be brave enough to sit in that space, because without those stories, you just didn't realize that there's someone else in that room that's going through exactly the same thing. And that's what it's all about. It's about sharing that knowledge, learning from the knowledge, and then because knowledge is powerful, because if you share it amongst everybody gets an ability to change maybe what they're going through to come out with a better outcome.
Yeah, and everyone's stronger together, right?
Correct.
Which is a beautiful thing about what community is about.
Yeah.
And so that's great takeaway.
Really cool. And once again, take
Thank
5
you.
minutes
Yeah,
out of your
5 minutes.
day. Lean on a gate, talk to a mate. You'll be surprised what comes into the atmosphere.
Lean on a gate, talk to a mate. I think that's the catchphrase everyone needs to start saying. As soon as I heard it, I just remember my uncles, and that's why I said to you when you said it to me, and the hair's going back on my neck. I was just like, lean on the gate. I was like, right, www. We've got that. We've got to make this a thing because it is such a thing. Lean on a gate and talk to a mate. Hey, by the way, whether you're a female as well. Like,
we're coming for you too.
We're not leaving you girls out either.
Really important part of what I do and what I believe is that our ladies and our kids and our significant others, mothers, sisters, brothers, they're the ones that while we tend to deal with the person with mental distress. I understand and I see the effects that has on the rest of the community and those other people, and we're here for you too, and we want to hear from you as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we're about saving people's lives. It's a serious subject. We're not here to muck around. You actually want to save people's lives because it doesn't need to be this way. It doesn't need to be this way at all. And sometimes, we know people can get too far into a bad space, but we're here to say, hey, lean on a gate and talk to a mate. And that's as simple as it might sound. It could be the thing that saves someone's life.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, guys, appreciate your time. Hey, as always, this podcast, it's been a bit of a different one today. Normally we talk about marketing, business, etc., but we're talking about a really serious subject. So I want to challenge you today. If you've listened to this, you're watching some of our short form video content, I want you to share it. I want you to share these episodes more than any others because this is a serious subject that can help, and we want to help more people in New Zealand, not even in New Zealand. This probably is a movement that will go even larger than this, but we're starting with our own backyard. So appreciate these guys. You can find these guys' details. They'll be on the website, Lean on a Gate, talk to a mate. But Slade and Craig, Wiggy, I appreciate you for coming along and being vulnerable enough to share your stories. And actually help people. I think what you're doing is amazing. So if you see these guys out and about, make sure you buy them a muffin, buy them a coffee.
I don't need a muffin, but whatever you got.
It looks like a muffin.
If they're in the pub, buy them a Coke or a beer, whatever they are. So they're doing amazing stuff. Appreciate your time. Thanks for it, and we'll talk to you really soon.
Cheers.